uh, I'm supposed to play in this video game tournament, and then yeah,
That's dope.
and then I'm supposed to go play or not play, and do another interview at like 1:30 ish. But fucking mental.
Yeah, dude. Well, man, the grind never stops, does it?
No, no.
All right, man. Let's do this. Derek
All right,
Scott.
cool.
We're rocking and rolling, brother. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good, man. Yeah,
Yeah. So, the fucking the Titan games,
yeah.
right on NBC.
Yep,
It just wrapped up on Thursday.
yep.
How you feeling about that?
Feel good, man. I think I never realized, for me personally, that people generally perceive me as an underdog in a lot of different a lot of different scenarios.
Yeah.
So for me, that was really interesting
Yeah.
because everything I've ever done, I've gone in like I'm gonna win this, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to. You have to have that champion mindset.
100%. Yeah. Why would
Yeah,
you not?
yeah, exactly. Why it's not worth doing if you don't think you're gonna win it.
Yeah.
But it was really interesting seeing the way that people kind of perceived me, and then seeing almost embracing that underdog role and kind of like just loving it, loving the whole entire experience, loving DJ, loving the whole NBC thing, the entire thing, and just seeing it on the screen was amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Does The Rock like to be called DJ? Is that what he asked to be called?
You know what? I don't know if he asked for it or if that's just kind of like how
It's-
it came about, but everybody on set, they have these big booming microphones and everything.
Yeah.
DJ to set,
Yeah.
so that's just what
Just
they called
what
him.
everybody keeps
Yeah.
saying, so it just kind of, yeah, that would stick for sure. Yeah, man, that's the guy that like everybody fucking probably, if I just treat everybody as a person.
Mhm.
I don't think I ever really get like starstruck, but he might be like the one person I'm like, oh shit, man, like what do you need, like his panties coming off, like yeah, man, that's a cool ass experience though. But so we were talking before the show though, man, like and I think this is important for people to know, like you've been grinding for a while, like
Oh yeah.
trying to like get into like going down this path of like being able to showcase your abilities, right? So
Oh
like
yeah.
let's
Oh
talk
yeah.
about that some, dude. Like how many different shows have you tried out for?
Yeah, so what's
Or
funny is that back in the day, my youngest brother Zeke was like, "Hey, let's try for American Ninja Warrior." All right, so we put together the audition videos, we put together the application material, we send that in. The casting producers get back to us, "Hey, we love you guys. You guys look great. You're still in the running for American Ninja Warrior." We
yeah.
actually just wrapped casting, so that's not available anymore. But this big but. Here's some Guinness World Records we're thinking about doing. Do you guys think you could break a Guinness World Record? Me and Zeke got together. We're like, here's 50 different records. Pick one. We'll break any one of them. We'll break multiple, whatever you need.
Yeah.
They actually come back and say, okay, we're actually thinking of creating a new world record. And they send us a video of two guys on like a big gymnastics spring floor.
Yeah.
One of them goes onto a Swiss ball, backflips off, rolls across. The other guy doesn't. And it's like a 40-foot floor, right?
Hmm.
So pretty big distance. They're like, we want to see who can do the most of these in 1 minute. Can you guys do this trick? Because they knew we had a gymnastics background.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely no problem. We'll do 150 of them. Cool. And then,
Is that total between the two of you?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We send that off, and we're like, oh shit, we got to learn this trick because neither of us had ever done it. So then
That's awesome.
we go out, we buy a Swiss ball, and we learn this trick. And in the process, there's like 15 concussions. Like, we're like, I don't know if we can do this, but we end up doing it. We come out to LA, we set this Guinness World Record. It's awesome. And then once you're on kind of these casting producers' radar, they will contact you, right?
Okay.
So then there's Guinness World Records, there's American Ninja Warriors, there's Steve Austin's Broken Skull Ranch, there's WWE Tough Enough, where they feature us on Monday Night Raw, me and Sean. Like, we're a huge part of this like announcement that this show is going to exist.
Okay.
We're 45 seconds of like a 2-minute commercial.
Yeah, you
We're
said
like,
you and your brother Sean, right?
yeah, so we think we're going to make this, we don't make that. There's Ultimate Beastmaster. I mean, there's so many different shows and opportunities where it's like, you're going to be on it, you're going to be on it, you're going to be on it, you're going to be on it. Oh, you just didn't make this last cut, or it
Yeah.
didn't work out, or the logistics, whatever it was. So then, fast forward to this, I was actually talking to the casting producers for American Ninja Warrior,
Uh-huh.
and they're like, we're still in the running this, blah, 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 but we have this other show. So this is how it always kind of works. We have this other show.
Yeah.
It's a competition-based series. It's the most crazy thing anybody's ever seen. We want good people who are kind of service to others, and they're like giving me this big spiel. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, this sounds awesome. This sounds awesome. And then they're like, and it's run by Dwayne the Rock Johnson. And I was like, boom, I'm in. Let's
Yeah,
go.
100%.
Whatever you need. Yeah.
Man, that's dope. So, throughout this time, whenever you're kind of going through this casting process for these other shows, are they having you, are they just like taking like your old footage, or like they just know what you're able to do, or are you going through like the entire process every time, right? Like a physical test and like an interview, and like what's the process like?
Yeah, so every single time they do one of these shows, they have it set up where there's like a procedure now. And it doesn't matter what you've done in the past. That's great. You can talk about it, but you got to jump
Yeah,
through the
what can you
hoops
do for me now?
every single time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what it looks like is you're going to fill out this huge application where they want to know your background, they want to know your story, they want to know who you are, they want to know every award you've ever won, they want to know every adversity you've ever faced, you know, just all this stuff.
Really?
Then you have to actually get in front of a camera, shoot a video. It's usually anywhere from 2 to 3 minutes. And this video is going to encapsulate like your personality, kind of what you can do from an athletic standpoint. And then sometimes in addition to that, there's like, for Ultimate Beastmaster, I remember there was this physical fitness test, right? So you had to actually do this physical fitness test, and that was a separate video. For this show, once you kind of made the cut and they're like, all right, you seem to be the type of person we're looking for,
Yeah.
they flew us out to Burbank, right? So, and in Burbank, they had the Sports Science Studios, or what used to be Sports Science on ESPN.
Okay.
And we did this huge combine. So for the Titan Games, the combine was max effort deadlift, VO2 max, max monkey bar test up and back. And the monkey's bars had like this huge vertical incline on it.
Oh shit.
We ran this huge obstacle course. We ran a 40-yard dash. We ran a max jump test. We ran, oh man, 2 interviews. Like, I mean, you name it. It was like a pretty intensive process.
Yeah, dude, that's a lot of steps for sure. Whoa. So then, okay, so you go through all that, and then you're just waiting for the call. Like, what's the time frame usually like on those things? They got you waiting for a while, or?
Oh man, it always seems like forever. From the time that I had the conversation with the casting producer and sent in my material to when they actually called me back and said you're coming to the combine was months probably. And then after they said you're coming to the combine, it was probably another month where you're like just kind of getting ready. You know this is on the horizon. And then once you do the combine, it was probably 3 to 4 weeks before they called back and were like, "Hey, you made it. You're one of the Titans. You're gonna compete on this show."
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's cool. So all of that just it stems from doing the Guinness World Record.
The original, yeah.
Yeah. And so I just want to make sure I have this in my mind. So were you trying out for shows before the Guinness World Record, or you were trying out for shows and then the Guinness World Record came?
Yeah, so no, I was in law school when the Guinness World Record took place. I had actually just graduated law school. My
Okay.
brother Zeke basically just found out about the American Ninja Warrior process.
Right. Okay.
He applies,
Okay.
right? I didn't even apply for that. And they contact him and said, "Hey, can you break these records?" Yes, and then it's kind of off to the races from
Oh,
there.
okay. I think it's an important note that for listeners is that you guys just said yes without even knowing if you could really, like, you believed you could do it,
100%.
but it's just like I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So many people, and that was like my big thing, like coming out here, because like once I started this podcast, I just decided like I'm gonna be traveling a lot more, and I mean there's gonna be costs associated with that, so you got to like make it work. So I just came out here and like I got a van, like I'll just figure it out.
Yeah.
And you don't always have to have a plan or a solution, like you just have to just start.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's important because, fuck, dude, that was the catalyst that took you down this path of where you are today. And so many people will make excuses for why they can't do things.
Yeah.
So I just want to talk about that record for a second. So you guys did 100. How many backflips did you do?
No, we told them we'd do 150.
Okay,
but
how many
that's
did you do?
So our first record in 1 minute is 37 backflips, right?
Okay.
And that's the original record. And then Sean and I actually went off to China,
Okay.
and they had a new record, which was 30 seconds. But what they didn't tell us is that they didn't tell us that they were basically scouting the entire country of China to find people to compete against us. So when we get to China, and I was coming from Dallas at the time, Sean was coming from St. Louis. We get to China, we're like, all right, we're going to practice this. We're going to have Swiss ball. So we're practicing in the hotel room. We go the next morning, which is at like 5 or 6 a.m. their time, and we're both jet lagged at this point.
Right.
We get to this, the compound was essentially an equestrian compound, and what we're in is a horse showing arena, which is extremely opulent. Like you look up and it looks like the Sistine Chapel on the roof.
Right. Just beautiful.
And they have cameras in the middle of the arena, and everything else is dark, and there's like cameras showing on these 2 Chinese dudes who are holding a Swiss ball, and we're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And so we're looking at them. They're doing their little intro piece. The one dude does, he walks in and he does like a walking gainer into some wushu kung fu, and we're like, okay, all right, so maybe they're here to do some wushu kung fu
Yeah.
records or something like that. Then they do the trick, the record that we have, and we're like, oh my god, they brought us here to compete against these dudes.
So you had no idea.
We didn't know at all before that, right?
Yeah.
So then, not only is it that team, there's 3 other teams that go through the exact same thing right in front of us, and we're like, okay, we're about to compete against 4 different Chinese teams for this record.
And they've probably been practicing for a little bit too.
Exactly, yeah, and it was mental. The whole process was surreal. It felt like the Hunger Games in that when they brought us to China and they were actually doing the record, the way that they frame this story, they have a red team and a blue team. And they bring the red team out and the blue team out, who each have like this leader who's like basically the Rock of China, right? And then they have a host. But when they bring you out, they carted us out on miniature horses, on chariots, behind like 30 of the biggest horses I've ever seen. They're like Clydesdales that have girls dressed like Chinese warriors on top of them.
Okay.
And there's fireworks going off. I mean,
wow, no short of theatrics.
No, absolutely mental. So that was a good preparation for the Titan Games.
Yeah, dude, I bet. So, okay, so you guys go out there, and then you guys won, I assume, right?
Yeah.
Oh man, that's dope. What was China like?
It was crazy, but because of the logistics of everything, we didn't get to kind of soak it in as much as we would have liked to.
Yeah.
We flew into Shanghai, and then where we actually shot the show was in Jingying province, which was about 2 hours outside. I'm sure I mispronounced that, by the way. So you get to see kind of between Shanghai and between where this equestrian compound is, and the equestrian compound kind of sits in a very rural area.
Yeah.
So the equestrian compound has a hotel, a restaurant, this big, huge compound, this huge stable that has like 400 of the most expensive horses in the whole entire world.
Oh, wow.
It has a school. So the compound itself is quite large, right? And you can kind of see a lot of this stuff. But around the compound, they basically carved this area out. They made its own lake, but around it is just like farms.
Yeah.
So that was really interesting. And what we didn't realize about China is that they build these huge apartment complexes expecting the population to expand into them. So when you're driving from Shanghai to these places, you see these huge apartment complexes, and they're big and they're completely empty.
Yeah.
But what they expect is that the population is at some point going to move there and then fill them up, and that's how they make their money back.
Wow. Yeah, that's an interesting spot, man. They have like just whole like Americanized like cities, right? Like little I don't know, like little fucking, I don't know, pick a town, I don't know.
Yeah, no, you know what's interesting is
like
that
little New York or something.
The bar at the compound was a Western themed bar. And Sean and these 2 English guys got there before me, right? And they come into the bar, and there's an equestrian school there as well.
Okay.
So all these equestrian schoolgirls come in, and they see like my brother and these English dudes, and they basically treat them like the Beatles. So like they're like, "Oh my God, can we have your autograph? This is crazy!" And they're in a Western themed bar where everybody who's working there has like cowboy hats on and like chaps.
That's funny. Dude, that's funny. So, okay, let's go back to your background a little bit, because I think that's important to, I mean, essentially everything you're doing today, right? I mean, so, walk me through some of like your athletic background. So you're a gymnast for a long time. Did you do any other sports growing up, or like, take me through all of that?
So, my parents owned Scott's Gymnastics. So from the time I was born, I was in a gymnastics.
So your parents are gymnasts?
Yeah, correct. Both my mother and my father, and my grandparents, and my great grandfather was actually supposed to be on the 1904 Olympic team. So this goes way back. Yeah. From the time I was like a little kid, probably like 4 or 5 years old, I could do a backflip, right? And when we were younger, my parents just allowed us to compete in everything. I mean, amongst each other, but also like we played basketball, baseball, football, wrestling. We played a lot of tennis. Like you name it, we probably competed in it. Everything except for like maybe hockey, just because like the cost of getting all the gear and everything was a little too much for my parents to afford.
Yeah.
But if they could figure out a way, they would allow us to compete in it. We played everything.
Okay. That's dope. So, what was your sport like growing up? I mean, obviously you stuck with gymnastics, I imagine, all the way through school, but did you do any like school sports like
Yeah, so
through high school?
in high school I played basketball, baseball, and football, and I did a little bit of diving, but more so like in a club aspect.
Yeah.
So like flips and stuff off of a springboard.
Yeah.
And then I also competed gymnastics at the same time.
Okay, yeah, dude, you're super active. You're super active. Gymnastics is one of those things. Like, I got my kids in like just tumbling, and my son like loves it. He's
Hmm.
just so dedicated. He's always doing back bends, and he's really working on his back handspring. And dude, I just feel like that's just one of the most, especially in like just the strength and health and fitness community. It's coming along like gymnastic strength training. You see it coming along, but it's one of the most, I don't know, just maybe like underutilized forms of strength out there, possibly. I mean, I think it's just, I look at male gymnasts and they're some of the strongest dudes on the planet, man.
Yeah, pound for pound, male gymnasts are unbelievable, but the girls are right there with them.
Oh, yeah.
The cool thing about now is like you have Coach Sommer with his gymnastics bodies. You've got the
Hmm.
animal flow guys. You've got Ito Portal with his like movement stuff. So you have a lot of people who are embracing this. Use your body weight, use your kinesthetic awareness. But people who come from like a traditional gymnastics background are like, man, we've been doing that forever. But
Right.
gymnastics is essentially the foundation for every movement thing that I've done. But
Yeah.
you've competed at a high level, so you understand it's not just how am I physically moving, but it's like how am I preparing to do this difficult thing that is relatively scary. So you have all these mental skills that are involved in it too.
Yeah.
So it's the foundation for that as well. Because the first time when you're a little kid and somebody's like do a backflip, there's a significant amount of mental strength and fortitude that comes into that, right?
Right.
So you have to kind of like embrace that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely, because, I mean, essentially, as a little kid, right, you're being asked to do these things, which may, and we do it as adults, which may feel impossible. You know what I mean? But then you have to like mentally commit to the unknown and just do it. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? Just figure it out. It's you're gonna fail, and then you're just gonna get better at it, and just fail again. And it's, slowly but surely, there's a process there. Um, so you started when you were 5. You were competing all that time too as a kid?
Oh yeah, I started competing from the time they would allow me to. So they actually like would allow me to compete in upper age groups when I was too young to actually compete. So
Yeah.
there's
Oh
like
wow.
videos out there of me as like a 4 or 5 year old kid competing on the gymnastics team, on the men's gymnastics team against kids who are like 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, right? So they're significantly older than I am, but I've already been in that kind of arena for a really long time.
Yeah.
Um, and I was on our like men's team from the time I was probably like 5 years old. And then I also not only did men's gymnastics, I did
Okay.
trampoline and tumbling as well. And trampoline and tumbling, I've generally excelled a little bit more there because with trampoline you just have to have really good awareness, and then the trampoline does a lot of the physical work.
Okay.
So I think I won my first national championship when I was like, my mom told me it was like 6 or 7. I don't remember. So I basically just take her word for it. Yeah.
How many national championships did you win?
Ooh, I don't know. I think like that year I won. So I won tumbling, double mini, and trampoline, which is technically considered 3. And then there's like an all around as well. So I mean, a number of different times, right?
Yeah,
So
and
win
then
year
throughout the
after year.
years.
Yeah.
Oh shit, dude. Yeah, so I mean winning is I mean you're accustomed to winning, right? I mean that's
Yeah, but I mean, I wouldn't say that because people hear like my story and they hear all that. But what I'm accustomed to is the grind
mhm.
and competing,
Yeah.
right? Winning is just kind of like
So,
if you take care of the process, like you get to win, right?
yeah.
It's not. I'm not accustomed to winning. I'm accustomed to the steps that it takes to win, and on that process, there's a lot of failing, a lot of losing, a lot of like
Yeah.
learning.
Yeah, 100%, man. And then that's just the byproduct, right? Of like
Yeah,
doing the work and like
exactly.
trusting the process.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%, dude. That's fucking awesome. So what's training like for you today? I mean, are you still
Oh yeah.
yeah, walk me through like a typical day for you as far as training.
Yeah, so for me, resistance training is anywhere from 3 to 5 times per week, depending on kind of what's going on.
Mhm.
Then I'll do anywhere from 3 to 5 sessions of like some type of mixed martial arts. And luckily enough, Dynamics MMA is literally 2 blocks that way. So
Okay.
like Henry Atkins, some of the best jiu-jitsu in the world, right? They have got really good coaches over there. Steven Struve usually comes and trains here when he does his
Nice.
camps.
It's a big dude. dude.
Yeah, and Ronda Rousey like was when she was younger, she was training over with those guys.
Okay.
So really good MMA there. And then I do anywhere from 2 to 3 sessions of like energy systems training. And energy systems can be basically what people think of as like intervals, or like there's a little bit higher aerobic stuff. Like I'm going for that usually 2 to 3 times per week as well.
Okay. Okay. So you're training what, like 6 days a week then? If I do that
Yeah,
right?
yeah, most of the time. I'll stack stuff together, but people hear that and they're like, "Oh, wait, that's, 15 sessions." But it's organically, and not every session is a full hour, so I'm just
Right.
kind of fitting things in where they make sense.
Yeah, man. I think it's yeah. When you train at a high level, you know what I mean. Like, there's a lot of different things to do,
Hmm.
especially because you're competing in MMA now, right? I
Yeah.
mean, or so how long have you been competing in MMA?
So I took my first amateur fight October of 2015, but before that I had done however you want to like kind of slice it up, probably anywhere from like 7 to 8 jiu-jitsu tournaments. I had
Okay.
done 2 kickboxing smokers, and I had done like some karate stuff before that.
Okay, and that
So
was all
like
back in St. Louis.
no, that was so all the jiu-jitsu tournaments were actually in Texas.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the karate stuff was in St. Louis, and the kickboxing smokers were also in Texas.
Okay. Okay. Did you move to Texas? So you graduated high school in St. Louis,
Yep.
and then you went to college in Texas?
Nope.
No?
So I graduated high school at Lindbergh High School in St. Louis.
Right.
Then I went to Lindenwood University. I finished
Lindenwood.
up. I dove there on the dive team. I walked on, dove on the dive team, became an All
Yeah.
American.
They have
all
such a
that
nice
stuff.
facility there.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
the
It's just,
Recplex is amazing.
yeah.
Um, I graduated in 3 years, but I didn't. I knew I wanted to go to law school, but I hadn't taken the LSAT yet. So they allowed me to coach the diving team my 4th year at Lindenwood
Mm-hmm.
while I got an MBA.
Nice.
So I got an MBA. I coached the dive team, and then after that, I went to law school. So I went to law school at Baylor
Baylor,
in
right?
Texas.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. All right, dude. Yeah, man. Fuck, man. So, national champion multiple times in gymnastics growing up. What other accolades did you have in high school for athletics?
So in high school, I was basically just a letterman. I
Okay.
suffered 2 Achilles tendon ruptures, which kind of altered my competitive path in high school. And I actually, at one point, I ballooned up to like about 230 pounds. And for me, I'm 5'9". 230 is
That's
pretty
big.
thick.
Yeah.
Because I kept the same basically intake and consumption, but my activity level was completely sedentary. I
Yeah.
was just sitting around playing video games, basically. Um, so I wasn't going to do athletics, but then my senior year, after I had recovered and everything, I was like going into, I had an academic scholarship to Lindenwood. So I was
Okay.
like, all right, I cannot not compete. It's like part of who I am. So I took all the weight off, I got in shape, and I was like, maybe I could do diving, right? It's relatively low impact. I have all this stuff on my left leg because of the ruptures.
Mm-hmm.
I contact the aquatics program. They're like, yeah, no problem. First day of school, we're going to have this meeting. Why don't you just come, meet everybody, and then when we come to practice, we'll basically try you out.
Okay.
That turns out to go really well, extremely well. I walk onto the dive team. I do really well. I think I took 6th at nationals my first year. And this is after having not competed in diving since I was like 7 or 8 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So you became an All-American there.
Mhm.
Does Lindenwood have a gymnastics team?
They do now. Yeah. They actually have a gymnastics team. And what's funny is gymnastics programs are very rare now, whereas they used to be quite common in university level.
Yeah.
But you look at some places like the University of Minnesota has a really good men's team, right? You look at the University of Oklahoma has a really good women's team. Mizzou has a really good women's team.
Yeah.
One of the coaches that coaches with us at High Energy, coaches with my dad and my brother, his name's Dan Huber. His daughter is actually on the Mizzou gymnastics
Oh,
team. So
nice.
like the community is relatively small.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I remember I went to a wrestling camp at Nebraska in high school, and I got to check out their gymnastics room, and I was just thinking like, man, dude, it was so nice and it was so big. That's cool, man. So they didn't. Yeah, Lindenwood's on the come up, dude. They're D2 now. Were they D2 when you were there?
They were NAIA when I was
They're
there.
still NAIA.
As soon as so when I finished my undergrad, they were beginning to make the transition to D2.
Okay. What year was it when you were there?
So I finished my undergrad in '09 and finished my MBA in 2010.
Okay, we were there at the same time. I graduated there my undergrad in 2010.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, dude, that's dope. So went down to Baylor, got your law degree.
Hmm.
and then from Texas you came out here.
No, I actually came back to St. Louis for about out of Baylor, I was recognized for my advocacy skills, which are like getting up in the courtroom and like actually arguing,
Okay.
right? And Baylor's known for its advocacy program. So you are basically forced into these mock trials, moot
Hmm.
courts, this big program where you actually have to put on a trial.
Okay.
And every single time our school, which is in the top 5 for advocacy,
Hmm.
got together, had these school-wide competitions, I won them. So
Okay.
for me, I was like, all right, I know that I'm pretty good at this.
Hmm.
So from there, I went to like a plaintiff's firm where thought I was going to do this. Did some of that. We were actually involved in the largest verdict out of Waxahachie County that ever took place.
Hmm.
I got recruited from there to a big law firm, Thompson Co., which is like downtown Dallas. And then from there, I got recruited out. I worked with one of my former professors, James Stanton. So James Stanton had opened up his own boutique law firm,
Uh-huh.
recruited me out. It was really awesome, but after seeing what he did from like a small law firm standpoint, I was like, I think I can do this myself.
Yeah.
So he gave me his blessing. We had this really long talk. I opened up my own firm, and then that allowed me to practice in Texas for a little bit, then come back home to kind of take care of my family. And then
Got it.
from St. Louis, I came out here to LA.
Okay. Yeah, dude, you've done some bouncing around. I'm trying to get a pinpoint on everything. Um, Damn, dude. Yeah. So that's quite a bit of experience. I'm getting this like this central theme of there's a lot of competition in your life,
Hmm.
and you definitely compete really well.
Yep.
What's your process as far as like how do you like to tackle things? Like do you have a process
Oh,
that
yeah.
you like to go about things? Like let's walk through that.
Yeah, so for me, obviously, there's a lot of hard training, a lot of like practice, whatever you want to call it. But what I've done in the past like 2 years is really dive into mental skills training.
Hmm.
So what I've done is I've actually there's a sports psychologist. His name is Dr. Jim Afremow.
Hmm.
So Dr. Jim Afremow wrote the book called The Champion's Mind. But there's a lot of different iterations, and there's a lot of really good people in this field. But diving into those mental skills, I do a lot of visualizations, I do a lot of mantras, I do a lot of like spending time inside my head.
Okay.
So by the time I go to compete, it's just complete focus, complete zen. Like you just compete. You do what you've always done, right?
Yeah.
The process up to that point is significantly more work intensive. Right. So competing itself, when you compete, you get better at competing. You
Hmm.
understand the nerves, you understand your mental skills, you understand your mental state.
Right.
All that stuff kind of takes care of itself. But up to that point, I treat every practice, every workout session, anything that I do that's in preparation to compete like it is the competition. So I'm significantly more intense when I'm practicing, when I'm working out, when I'm doing those things than I am when I compete. Because when I compete, I'm like, the money's in the bank. Let's
Yeah.
go spend it
Yeah, the
basically.
work's already been done. Yeah, I had a coach. I mean, I've said it and I've heard it 1,000 times, but I mean, you're going to compete like you practice.
Exactly.
You really will. I mean, you always fall to like the level that you trained.
Hmm.
Like you never really rise to like the level of the competition
Hmm.
typically. You know what I mean? So some people do. Some people are just gamers, but in general, I mean, you're definitely going to fall to whatever level that you prepared for. So I mean, yeah, the process is very important. Um, so coming full circle because we like went on this tangent and I'm bringing it back to MMA, right? Because that's where we're at. So you're doing all these different sessions and you're training because you have a fight coming up right on
May
Shamrock
10th.
FC,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. Sean's fighting on it too. My brother Sean's
Oh, that's
fighting
gonna
on it
be
as well.
dope.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be there. I'm doing like PR for them, so like I walk around and like I'm just like capturing content and different things. So that's gonna be fun. That's at River City Casino.
I actually don't know. I haven't looked. This was like Rob and Jesse are great and just chat me up all the time. And we were talking about the Titan games, talking about getting a fight together. They gave me a date, and I said yes. So
Yeah.
they sent a contract, and let's go. I'm less focused on specifics.
You're just like big picture. I'll be there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can totally dig that. So what makes you want to do that? Like what makes you want to still like to fight
Yeah.
with all these other opportunities that are probably abound?
What's funny is that I talk to people about this all the time. And for me, it's not just about being a physical competitor. It's about being a mental competitor. It's about being, a gentleman warrior type deal. And in today's society, you can't really express that physical competitiveness outside of like an MMA arena.
Yeah.
So for me, my mind is kind of driven to be this warrior, right? So I've
Hmm.
always self-identified as a warrior, as like that type of protagonist, right? The
Yeah.
person who, if there's an issue, you're going to hopefully, resolve it via, communication, all that other stuff. But if that doesn't take place, I believe that society needs warriors. And for me, this is an outlet for that warrior aspect of my personality, who I am. My uncles will always tell you, like, my family is descendant from Viking kings and gypsy queens, right? So we're warrior type people. And
Hmm.
for me, that's kind of like how I self identify. And this is that outlet for that aspect of who I am.
Yeah, I can understand that. I mean, it's better to be, like a warrior in the garden than a gardener in a
Yeah.
war, right?
Yeah.
So, that's how I started with MMA. It was just like it's a very pure form of competition.
Hmm.
I mean, there's just so many different ways to get it done, and yeah, there's definitely something about it. Getting in there, just you and one other person. Cage gets locked, like all preparation is done. It's just, mano a mano, like who's gonna be the better man today. You know what I mean? And like, there's definitely something to that. Do you ever worry about your brain?
No.
No,
No.
you can't. Can you?
Well, for me, I try and train really smart from like what am I doing, like hard sparring rounds, different stuff like that, and like
Hmm.
keep that intelligent. But not only that, like when I actually fight, like in a cage, I have a friend who basically said I always try and like put on a suit afterwards because a lot of times I have clients or different stuff. Well, I had a fight and then I put on a suit and my client was like, "You look like you just went to a Hollywood premiere. You're in a suit. Your face is completely unscathed, and that guy has basically purple bruises up and down his body."
Yeah.
And it's just like for me, the goal is to hit without getting hit.
Oh
So I'm
yeah.
not I'm not super worried about the fights. It's more so being intelligent about my training, and then
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, man, because it can be hard on the body. That's where I started worrying about my brain too much.
Mhm. Mhm.
Like, because when you're in there, you can't really have too much regard for yourself. Like,
Yeah.
you have to go in there and you have to believe that, well, you can't, if you worry about what could happen to you, you're not going to perform well, right?
Yeah.
So you just have to think about what you need to do to win.
Mhm.
But I mean, you still kind of like, you almost have to feel like you're invincible still.
Yeah.
Like, you can't be hurt.
Yeah. That's
Like,
all that mental skills training.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a vital. Like, if you don't have that, you will not be successful in
Yep.
that cage.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, dude. But yeah, I would think about like getting rocked, and I was like, dude, I don't want that brain trauma. Did you see the fight with Rory McDonald
Yeah.
and Robbie Lawler?
Yeah.
Dude, those guys were not the fucking same afterwards. They
Yeah.
just beat the shit out of each other. Did you watch the fights last night?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some pretty good fights. What'd you think of them?
I used to train out of Fortis MMA in Dallas, and they
Hmm.
had two fighters on that card. They
Okay.
had Macy Chazen, who won and is now 5-0, just looks like an absolute badass.
Yeah.
And then they had Charles Bird, and Charles fought basically the coach of Ronda Rousey, was his guy, right? I don't
Okay.
remember his name. And he lost in 37 seconds. And my initial reaction was like, I want to reach out to Charles and be like, look, man, this is a learning process. Like, keep your head up. Like,
Yeah.
you're going to be all right.
Yeah.
But for me, I watch MMA now because I know so many people in the community.
Hmm.
I have like, and it's not, I'm never rooting for one person over the other. I'm just rooting for, those people to find out something about themselves. Because I think that's what fighting is. You find out something about yourself, whether you
Every
win or
time.
lose. Yeah.
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 Yeah, man. I think just any difficult, challenging situation, I think it's important for people to like have those and like to put yourself in those. I think that's probably why you gravitate towards them because I know for myself, like anytime I'm doing something difficult, you definitely discover something about yourself. And I have a professor with jujitsu. I mean, he always says, jujitsu, it just tells you more about who you already are. You
Yep.
know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And so many people try to avoid those difficult situations. I've found.
Yeah, what's cool is that so Brian Guidry, who's part of the Team Voggy, right? You
Hmm.
guys, all those guys, right?
Yeah.
He's been messaging me throughout the Titan Games process, and like he's a cool guy. He said some extremely humbling, very kind things after the finale, and it's cool to have somebody who's of that level, right? The dude's a world champion in jiu-jitsu, say nice things about me, right?
Yeah.
And not only that, I've had some of my teammates from Texas. One of them, Eli Thomas, is undefeated. The dude is 14 or 15-0 undefeated, and
Yeah.
he was like this. He was calling me a beast, and I was just like, it's surreal to have people who I view as that top level
Yeah.
say, recognize those traits in me.
Hmm.
And it's crazy.
You are a beast, dude. Man, there's that one clip, where you're right there at the edge,
Yeah.
dude. And like you just push that fucking wall all the way back.
Yeah.
That dude didn't have a chance.
What's crazy is that there's a lot of things that you don't see in the TV clip. So that competition itself, from the time the like cannons and pyros go off to begin the competition to when it actually concluded, was like 30 minutes.
Okay.
And 29 of those minutes are him basically pushing me back, me stopping, him pushing me back, me stopping, him pushing me back, me stopping. And that went on the whole time until I'm literally, I thought it was actually 6 inches. It was 1 inch. I'm 1 inch away from like losing.
Yeah.
My foot slipping off and losing. And in that moment, or in that, those few minutes where I'm like at the very end, I've never been so conscious of having a conversation with myself.
Yeah.
Right? Because I'm physically exerting myself. I'm locked in. I'm doing that. But not only that, I'm psychologically going through the process of like grieving the loss, literally, before I've lost. I'm on the edge, and I'm grieving the loss in my head. I'm like, oh fuck, I lost. It's gonna be okay. Like, we're gonna talk about this like with ourselves. Like, we're gonna reflect on this. And then there's like this booming voice in the back of my head that's like, shut the fuck up. You can rest tomorrow. Push. And like, that's my brother. Like, my brother Sean. Like, that's literally his voice.
Okay.
And from that moment forward, I was like, you're right. You know what? I haven't lost yet. I'm on the top. I'm 1 inch from the edge. Push.
Yeah.
And oh man, it was mental. And then they don't show this either. Afterwards, neither of us could walk. Like, that competition is so grueling on your quads that
Yeah.
I floated down, and I was like going to do a backflip. I was going to celebrate and just go ham. And I went to like stand up, and my legs completely gave out.
Yeah.
I'm lying on the ground. Yeah, it was that's the hardest thing I've ever done physically. Probably emotionally and mentally too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, afterwards, like, what's going through your head in that moment?
Like, after the win?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Immediately after the win,
Like, so when you do something like that, the hardest physical thing I've ever done, having that grieving process of you lost to like, no, I'm going to push back and win. You realize how strong you are. Right?
Yeah.
So that's a literal manifestation of what we all talk about, that like things can get bad. Things can look horrible. You can be 1 inch from the ledge and you push back. It was, my self-confidence had never been at an all-time high. And the other thing that people don't recognize about this is that I was working full-time the entire Titan Games process. Like, everyone else was basically flew out to California on vacation.
Yeah.
I couldn't take a break.
Yeah, you live here, right?
Yeah.
You're a trainer?
So I was working full-time. And then I was sleeping like 1 to 2 hours per night. And throughout the process, I lost like 15 pounds.
Oh, shit.
So I was losing weight. I wasn't sleeping. I was working full-time. I was super stressed out. And all those things would have usually been an excuse, but it wasn't, right? They put you up on this thing. You're going to climb, you're going to push, and you're going to win, right?
Yeah.
So for me, like, it was the kind of example of all those days of mental skills training of like, even when stuff gets bad, you can still like push through this.
Right, yeah, and I mean, you made no excuses.
Yeah.
Nobody even knew that that was even going on.
Correct.
Right, and that's the thing, man. Like, you just have to deal with it, right? I mean, adversity happens, and you just have to find a way. Like, I think about that. Like, I was training full time, fighting professionally at a high level. Like, I mean, I made it to Bellator, and I fucking working full time, and I have 2 kids, and like, you just make no excuses. You just do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the more you do it, the stronger like mentally you become.
Exactly.
Right. So it's just how it's done, dude. Yeah, that's so dope. So like, afterwards, you felt fucking, I'm sure, just amazing. And do you like, in that moment, do you feel like you're like in a flow state? You know what I'm talking about? Like, where like everything's just kind of clicking. And
Yeah, but for me, every time I ever compete, I feel in a flow state. And what's really neat is that I've never seen myself immediately before a competition, right? Because even when they shoot videos of MMA fights, they show your walkout, and you're already kind of like in it. But in the Titan Games, they actually show me like standing on the starting circle, and like they show my eyes, and I'm like, oh man, I recognize that look, right? It's just complete focus, complete like mindfulness and presentness, or however you want to call it. Like, okay, there's a wall in front of me. Okay, there's an obstacle in front of me. Okay, whatever's in front of me, that's where like 100% of like my intention and being is at this moment. So that was really, really, really cool to see.
What are you saying to yourself in that moment?
You can hear me on a lot of the clips. You can hear me talking to myself.
Yeah.
So before the lunar impact, my father has a saying. He says, 10 two-letter words that make all the difference. If it is to be, it is up to me. And I'm standing there and I'm rocking back and forth and I'm looking at the ladder and I'm saying that to myself.
Yeah.
If it is to be, it is up to me. If it is to be, it is up to me.
Yeah, just
And
over and over.
I'm just mantraing it, right?
Yeah.
And I have all those little things. There's a Bible verse that I like that says, the righteous or the wicked flee when no man pursueth, but the righteous are bold as a lion.
Okay.
And I can remember like one of the best performances I ever had. I was just saying that to myself. So like,
Yeah.
you find these words that give you this feeling, that have this meaning, and it puts you into the appropriate mental state. So I'm like, I love mantras, right? I love affirmations. I love mantras. I love the mental game. The mental game for me is where I've really been like, okay, I have so much more growth in this area, right?
Yeah.
Because I train with world-class coaches in almost every other physical area, right? But the mental skills is something that I didn't realize I was training when I was training it, and I realized that there's so much more for me to kind of like get.
Yeah. Dude, the mind really is the key
Yeah.
to unlocking like all of the physical potential, because like our bodies are capable of far more than like the mind or what your current mind state will lead you to believe, right? Like it's so easy to be like, oh, I can't do that, or like you start to push to a physical, almost like wall, and you feel like you can't go any further. But like if you just mentally like push through that barrier, the body can keep going.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like I remember the first time for me I experienced that was in high school wrestling. We came in on a Sunday. It was typically kind of a chill, lift and run, like because we had tournaments almost every Friday and Saturday. My coach had different plans for this day. So we lifted really hard, we ran really hard, and then we went and live wrestled for an hour. At the end of live wrestling, we're all fucking crying, we're exhausted, and he takes us through a visualization and almost like meditation practice, and brings us all down. And like it was in that moment because I can remember thinking, man, I can't do this, and I'm so physically exhausted. And like I'm going with the big guys. I think I'm going with like I wrestled at 85, so I'm going with like our I don't know, our 215 and our heavyweight. And I just remember like in a moment there, I'm like, fuck this, like I'm just gonna just kill these two. And like I just kept pushing through. And afterwards, I realized like, man, we're capable of far more than we are led to believe. You know what I mean? And it all starts with the mind. It's like you have to train the mind first, and the body will follow. And I just think that's just so powerful for people to understand. So how else do you like to like train that? I mean, obviously mantras. You mentioned your dad. Like, do you have any like mentors that you like to go to, or any books or podcasts, or like what do you like to do to train your mind?
Yeah, so for me, the mental stuff, right now, acutely, what I'm doing is this Dr. Jim Aframo stuff, the Champion's Mind stuff, the Gold Medal Mindset. That's actively where I'm like being conscious about it. But for me, it's like it's been a lifetime up to this point of doing those mental skills. You talk about wrestling practices. We used to have this coach, David Bertolino. He would say, literally, we would have 2-hour wrestling practices, and we would be soaked in sweat, can't move anymore, and he would say, break your partner. Break your partner. If you're not trying to break your partner, you're doing them a disservice, you're doing yourself a disservice, you're doing your family a disservice, you're doing everyone in your life a disservice. You've been given a gift. If you don't do your absolute best to express that gift, you're doing a disservice, right? You're wasting that gift.
Yeah.
So literally, I would always try and break my partners, right? And like, I would pick them up, I would take them back down, I would, whatever it would be, if they were broken, right? And then I would lift them back up. And that's how you train that mental skill. But same thing now, like I try and read what is available to us with regards to like scientific research. And there's a big paper on fatigue. And what they've shown is the very acute example is at the very end of like a marathon or like a large run, those athletes are able to sprint to the finish line, right? So that's a cute example of when you should be physically completely exhausted, you still have this next level where the fatigue doesn't exist and you can physically push past that.
Right.
So for me, I'm always looking to examples of how do I do that? How do I manifest that in my own life? And how I use it on a daily basis is when I train physically. Yesterday, for example, I was doing something called a pendulum squat. And when I first started doing pendulum squats, I could barely do like 2 plates. And it was hard. It's a difficult movement to do appropriately, right? With like perfect form, perfect tempo. So yesterday, I went for 4 plates. And I was like, literally, I was like, I can't do this. There's no way. Like, I'm going to get pinned at the bottom. I'm not going to be able to stand up. And just that, being able to do those super hard reps, calm yourself down, push past where you think you are physically, just try and do that on a daily basis. Find whatever that limit is.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just finding those challenges in your life is so important. My coach used to say, and I think he got it from the movie Man on Fire, but like, pressure is a privilege, and I still use that mantra like to today. I mean, pressure can either bust pipes or create diamonds. You know what I mean? It's just however you respond.
Yeah, my man RG3 at Baylor, no pressure, no diamonds.
Yeah, dude, it's so true, dude. It's so true. Yeah, and I love the feeling afterwards. Like after being in a flow state, you're just on this ultimate high. You know what I mean? And I used to think that I was an adrenaline junkie, but I realized like I was a flow junkie because I love when the stakes are high and there's a lot of pressure and like you go in there and you perform and everything's just clicking, right? You're not really thinking, you're almost like out of body and everything's just moving, boom, boom, boom. And then it's like this dream almost like immediately afterwards still. And you just feels just so good, so just this ultimate high and you're just so relieved.
Yeah, what's funny is that in the nutrition world, in the training world, in a lot of the stuff that we do, we talk about mindfulness, being present, meditation. And everyone always kind of associates that with, they have this connotation of like sitting there with your eyes closed doing alms, right?
Yeah.
But it's not just that. Mindfulness, presentness, meditation can be insanely like competitive, right? Physically exhaustive as well.
Yeah.
As long as the mindset is there and you just like, yeah, you're right. You become addicted to it, right?
Yeah.
Whatever it is, whatever that competition is, whatever that kind of gets you going, like feeling like you're alive, man, go for it. Always.
Yeah, man. Have you read the book Stealing Fire by Stephen Kotler?
Nope.
It's essentially talking about like flow state and different things. He also wrote another book I think called Becoming Superman.
Ooh, love it.
Kind of more about that. And one of the things he talks about is how once you're able to like mentally conceive something, like then it becomes possible. And he used the example, he used a couple different examples, but one that's really easy to translate would be like the 4-minute mile. Beforehand, everybody thought that was impossible.
Bannister.
Yeah, you thought your heart would explode. Like, you just can't do it. And then, one person did it, and now you have high schoolers that can do it.
Yeah,
You know
what's
what I mean?
crazy is that right before the Titan games, I actually shared a post from Roger Bannister and what he was talking about, how he was able to get to that 4-minute mile. And it was completely mental, right?
Yeah.
So he just decided that he was going to be able to suffer more than any other physical human being had done to that point, or at least recorded.
Yeah.
And that's how he got to that 4-minute mile. And then as soon as other people saw that it was possible, this mental barrier for everyone else just dissipated, and then people were breaking it all the time.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's how it works, right? It's like you just have to know that it's possible, and like once one person does it, I mean, we're just always setting new boundaries all the time. It blows me away. So what do you like to do? I mean, we talked about like your training regimen. Like what do you like to do for recovery? I mean, because you're always going, dude. You got to recover, right?
This is funny. So I just gave a presentation in-house here at UPLA about sleep, right?
Yeah.
So I am meticulous about my sleep. I go to bed at the exact same time. I wake up at the exact same time every single day without fail.
What time you go to
right?
bed?
So I have an alarm that goes off at 9 p.m., go to bed. I wake up at 5 a.m. every single day.
Nice.
And if I adjust one way or the other, it's usually by about half an hour.
Okay.
So I'll make an adjustment one way or the other, sometimes by about half an hour. And obviously life will sometimes keep me up a little bit later, but
Right.
I'm usually pretty meticulous about that. The other thing is I'm actually sponsored by Rock Tape. So Rock Tape really takes care of me. So like they have kinesiology tape that I use a lot of the times, but not only that, they have like fascial abrasion tools. They've got cupping, and I'm like FMT certified and a bunch of other different stuff. So
Nice.
I've done enough soft tissue stuff that I can kind of take care of myself. When we do in-house like educational stuff at least 3 times per week here. And when we're doing those, I'm usually doing some type of like skin rolling or something like that that's going to help my fascia, help my tissue. I'll go get soft tissue massages. I have a chiropractor over here who's like absolutely amazing. So if I need like some alignment or something like that, I'll have
Yeah.
him take care of me. Um, as crazy as I am about training, I'm just as crazy about recovery. But it's not just like I'm getting soft tissue, I'm doing massaging, I'm sleeping well, I'm eating well as well.
Yeah.
I try and meditate a lot. I also try to make sure that like anything that is in or around my body isn't harming me.
Yeah.
So I use what's called Environmental Working Group. They have an app called EWG.org.
Okay.
And anything that I put to any hygienic product, anything I consume, I run through that app to make sure that it is not going to be harmful to me.
Oh, nice. What's the app called again?
It's called EWG.org. I think it's called like Mindful Living or something like that.
Yeah.
They are getting a little bit more like known because Khloe Kardashian got involved with them.
Oh, really?
But here's my thing: like if I'm at a grocery store and I have to buy toothpaste, and I have this app that can scan every barcode,
Yeah.
and a 5 means it's linked to some type of cancer,
Yeah.
and then a 1 means it's been researched and there's no carcinogen. Right, it's not going to be harmful.
Yeah. No carcinogens or anything like that.
Exactly. So if I can scan both of those things and it's making a choice between a 1 or a 5, I'm going to choose the 1, right? So that type of behavior for me is really easy to implement. I have no barrier to entry. I'll just do it.
Yeah.
What's funny is when I first heard about, so receipts have a chemical on them that's not good for you,
Right.
For lack of a better way to put that.
Right.
I won't touch receipts.
Mm-hmm.
So like little stuff like that, I am very, very mindful of, and I just immediately implement into my behaviors.
Yeah.
All my water at home has a filter on it. I just bought a filter for everything that comes into our house, and then I have a Berkey filter that I use my drinking water and like
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Dude, I'm with it, dude. The things like that not just what we eat and what we put in our body, but what we put on our body, right? I mean, our skin's our largest organ. Like I don't even use lotion. I use coconut oil.
Yep.
There's hardly any plastics in my house. I use like all glass. Like I
Yeah.
went and got big 5-gallon glass carboys, and like 'cause I don't drink tap water or anything like that. So and like I'll go fill those up, and yeah, wood and metal and
Yep.
yeah, dude, it's just where it's at. You got to really pay attention to the things that you're putting into your body
Exactly.
and what you're using, like toothpaste and
Yeah.
different things.
Yeah. The craziest part for me is that I'm really adamant about all that stuff, and I generally find it to be pretty easy. My biggest exposure is I go surfing a lot.
Yeah.
And think about it. Everything that everyone else is using gets washed into the ocean. So you have a lot of stuff in the ocean. And what
Yeah.
I've found is that some days when I go surf, I'll ingest some salt water, some seawater, and then I'm like sick because it's terrible, right? Everything that everyone is using is getting washed into our water, and it's like, man,
Yeah.
I wish that people would be a little bit more receptive to making changes where it's low hanging fruit, right?
Yeah.
Using glass and metal instead of plastic is a pretty easy transition if you just are a little mindful about your choices.
Right. Yeah. It's not as convenient, right? Because I mean, glass can break
Yep.
and it's maybe a little bit heavier, but I mean, at what cost is convenience really, bringing?
Yeah, you know what? I have this conversation all the time, and it's a little bit higher level conversation, but we have so much advancement, right? And what's all this advancement in technology and all this stuff for if we're not trying to be healthier, if we're not trying to help each other?
100%.
So I look at convenience and I look at companies who put profit and try and, they're using plastics, they're using these things because they derive a higher, profit margin off
Yeah,
of that.
helps your margins.
But is that really worth it in the long run where people are being, in essence, carcinogens are being put into people because these companies could make the transition, but they choose not to because they need to have a higher profit margin to
Yeah.
satisfy, their investors or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And that feels broken to me in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Dude, 100%. And I mean, I have this conversation all the time because you look at just the different sources of like energy that we could be using, but we're still using fossil fuels. And it's just like, what are we doing? Like, we're obviously not doing what we could be doing to be the best.
Yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I mean, or the healthiest. It really blows me away.
yeah. There's a quote out there that says, "Do your best until you know better, and when you know better, do better."
Right.
And I think a lot of the times people know better now, but they have these selfish motives that don't allow them to do better for others. And for me, that kind of hurts my soul. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I try and be very gracious with my time. I try and literally help as much as I can. And I think that's just a tenet of who I want to be.
Yeah.
I want to be of service to others, especially anything that I've done. I want to tell people, like, look, if you see this trait in me, you're capable of it, and
Yeah.
allow me to help you, or go on your own.
Yeah.
Be your own superhero.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, I've kind of made that shift. Like, just the more people that I can connect with and like help with, and just try to add value to them. I mean, I feel like that's just the way to go.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
you leave people better than you found them. You know, to the best of your ability.
Yep.
That's also why I like to work with. I mentioned a little bit before, in like the company Jumbo Superfoods, because they use like all like high quality premium ingredients,
Hmm.
and like they put things in glass, and they have a couple different like brands. Like one of them's like a Dirt brand, and it's called Dirt anyway, but they make like a really good lip balm and like toothpaste and different things. So
That's
it's like
awesome.
just aligning with companies with the same values
Hmm.
that are actually trying to add value to the world instead of just
Yeah.
like increase their margins all the time.
Yeah. It's good when you can have like sponsors and people who are on your team that makes sense for you. Like for me, I have, like I talked about rock tape with regards to my recovery, and I did my first rock tape seminar not as one of their athletes, right? I just did it because I was like, the guys who were teaching it are two of the best former Olympians in the world as far as like recovery and different stuff goes with the training aspect. So I went to them for training aspect to learn from them. And then they taught me about rock tape, and I was like, hang on, if these guys are former Olympians, they have a really good macro level view of what's going on. They're using this stuff. I'm going to try it out. So I did some rock tape. I did some of the like fascial abrasion. I did some of the cupping. I did some of these techniques, the skin rolling. And immediately I was like, wow, I feel so much better. Right. And when you can do those things and you can have companies that'll support you and that
Yeah.
make sense for you, it makes your life, it makes you feel significantly more like genuine.
Yeah. What's skin rolling?
So skin rolling is literally where you take the fascia and I'm
Uh-huh.
going to pinch it like this, and then I'm just going to roll it up.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah.
if you have any fascial abrasions, as you roll the skin, you'll feel like these little pops in the fascia. And for me, because I have two Achilles tendon ruptures, I roll the skin on the back of my Achilles all the time. And as I roll from like the heel up to the back of the kneecap, I'll feel like these little pops. And before, I just wasn't addressing that at all. So the scar
Oh.
tissue was becoming adhered.
Yeah.
What they call it is fascia, skin, all that stuff is supposed to slide and glide.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is it kind of becomes mossed together, right?
Mm-hmm.
It sticks together, and then your body doesn't operate the way that it's supposed to.
Yeah.
So for me, I do a lot of skin rolling because it helps with that fascia, right? It helps everything to be moving the way that it's supposed to move.
Right. Yeah, I'm gonna have to start implementing on that. Like my ankles, like my mobility is shit.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And I've just been so focused on regaining that capacity
mm-hmm.
because like it affects my squat. Like
Yep.
my hips are tighter, like, and as my hips got loose, like I started gaining more capacity in my hips, I realized, oh, I gotta go to the base, my ankles, like
Mm-hmm.
those just aren't where they need to be. So I'm gonna start implementing that. Like that's definitely a good one.
Yeah, what's cool is that I have enough soft tissue knowledge that I was massaging my girlfriend's feet the other day because she was like, they're hurting.
Mm-hmm.
And as I'm massaging like the bottom of her feet, I can literally feel and hear the fascia like breaking up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, no wonder your feet hurt. You have all of these fascial restrictions or soft tissue restrictions or however you want to kind of call it, right?
Yeah.
The tissue should slide appropriately, should kind of
Mm-hmm.
constrict and
Yeah.
come together. And if it's not, you're gonna have some issues. It's gonna manifest, whether it be your ankle, your knee, your hip. It's gonna go up chain or down chain or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
And the shoes we wear, I mean,
yeah,
they're terrible. Like they're not designed for
yeah.
like how we're supposed to be like moving and operating.
What's funny in the gym kind of paradigm, we have a lot of people that come in running shoes, and anytime where you have to have like a good stable base and press through your feet, we have people take their shoes off.
Yeah.
So what's funny is when we're training, we have a lot of people who are training in stocking feet because they come in these shoes that if you push laterally on the outside of the foot, you're going to roll over, right?
Yeah.
And everything is not going to work the way it's supposed to work. So we
Right.
just say, look, take your shoes off. It's going to be better.
Yeah.
Whether it be, deadlifting, squatting, whatever it may
Yeah,
be.
and then now you're giving your feet the opportunity to actually like be used and
Hmm.
like to
Yeah,
build that stabilization in
yeah.
those muscles. Do you do any like cryotherapy or like do you implement the sauna or anything like that? Floating?
So for me, I do a lot of sauning. Like I really like sauning. It's like one of the easiest ways to like
Yeah.
detoxify the body.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a lot of cryo companies reach out to me. It's not something that I've implemented really. I'll use more so like cold showers
Yeah,
or like
just
the Wim Hof stuff, like
yeah.
cold water immersion.
Yeah.
I do that pretty easily. When we go up to the mountains, I've actually like tried to like find places to like literally jump into like the streams.
Yeah. That's where
And
it's at.
that's, oh my God, I love that. So I'll use that. I'll use the sauna. I've done the float pods probably 3 or 4 times, and they're amazing from like a meditative standpoint. Really helps to like clear everything out. So yeah, I'm not opposed to using any of that stuff. If
Yeah.
it, even if it's a placebo effect, if it helps you perform better, who cares,
Yeah.
right?
Well, the placebo effect, I just hate the way we talk about that these days because like that's literally the mind
Yeah.
like fixing your body or like doing something. Like there's so much to that, right? But we always just say maybe it's just the placebo effect. But it's like I think we should be trying to figure out like how can we make that happen more often? Like how can we trigger the mind to do these amazing things?
Yeah, and this is in a different context, but a mentor who's responsible for a lot of what we do here, Charles Poliquin, used to always say that the research is like multiple Olympic cycles behind what people would see in the gym,
Yeah.
right? So you talk about cluster training. Like cluster training was something that Charles would use, and then it's like 3 or 4 or 5 Olympic cycles later, they're
Yeah.
talking about, oh, we're doing all this cluster training. It's like, well, I was doing that 15
Yeah.
years ago. So if you listen exclusively to the research, you're going to be behind. But you
100%.
do have to appreciate what the research says. But most people don't even know how to read a research study. So
Yeah, and I mean, they can be very, I don't know if convolute is the word to use, but it can be murky whenever you're reading them if you don't know what
yeah,
you're reading or
yeah,
what words are
yep.
being used.
You have to understand the demographic. You have to understand how they trained them. You have to understand how they took the data that they took,
Yeah.
like all of that stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because I mean they'll take a small sample set and then they'll extrapolate this to the population
Hmm.
and they'll be like, oh well, this is gonna cause this. But it's like, all right, well, are we really looking at the parameters of the experiment here? Like, come on, guys, like let's
Yeah.
be scientific about this. So yeah, you really have to just kind of be diligent about the
Yeah.
information that you're using.
What's cool, and to tie this back into the Titan games, one of the other Titans, Kara Killian, actually works for Cal State Fullerton with Dr. Andy Galpin.
Nice.
And my girlfriend Taylor is doing one of their research studies on females right now with regards to high intensity interval training. So
Oh,
like
nice.
for me, I get to have some really neat insight because of that, into like how these research studies are done, like, and everything that comes about it.
Dude, that's dope. Yeah, that's a good insight to have. You know what I mean? And I don't want to take you too much more of your time, dude. I do have another question though about so what we've kind of went over all aspects of your training. We talked a little bit about your nutrition, but what is your nutrition like? Like what
Oh,
like
cool.
are you supplementation or like
Yeah.
what are you doing, man?
So this is cool, and this is actually one of the areas that I really enjoy talking about. So I have a Precision Nutrition Level 1 certification. I have a Precision Nutrition Level 2 Master Nutrition Coaching certification. I've also been able to do like a mentorship with Dr. John Berardi. So they
Nice.
flew me out to Canada. I got to meet Dr. Berardi. We
Yeah.
got to talk all the time, and he is like one of the leading experts within the nutrition coaching arena of
Okay.
like how you do those things. So for me
Is the
personally,
precision nutrition training, is that him?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So he is Precision Nutrition along with his business partner. Basically, they started
Got
it.
it.
Um, I am in essence nutrition agnostic, right? I don't follow any one type of diet, right?
Right.
I adhere to the principles that make sense for every single human body,
Mm-hmm.
and then I treat everything like an experimentation. I go a step further than I ask most of my clients to do in that I track like everything.
Yeah.
So when I'm tracking everything, it's not difficult for me to do. Like it doesn't create any restrictions. I just do it, right?
Yeah.
It's super easy for me. So I'm generally eating a relatively high protein diet. We're talking about 1.3 grams per pound of lean body mass, right?
Okay.
It's generally what I'm shooting
Yeah, that's
for.
quite a
High
bit.
protein, right? Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
And then I usually try and get as much vegetable intake as possible. And then I'm really kind of forgiving to myself with regards to did I have carbs? Did I have some fats? Where did the rest of these calories come from? And then right now I'm cutting, so like I generally just keep my caloric deficit and then be very self-forgiving basically. If I have some ice cream or I have a sandwich, I just view it as muscle fuel, as my brother would say.
Yeah, I mean, when you're super active, right? I mean, you're going to probably use those, and
Hmm.
it's about like what are you doing most of the time? The
Yeah.
problem is most people have the cookies and the ice creams all the time,
Hmm.
but if you're eating, real food,
Hmm.
real protein, mostly vegetables,
Yep.
like good sources of carbohydrates, I mean, you're fine.
Yep.
Yeah. How do you feel about like breads and different things?
So I go for them because I don't really have any issues with them,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't give me any digestive issues. I don't have brain fog. That's with the exception of if I really go in excess. So I'm
Yeah.
I'm fine with like some processed carbohydrates or some neo carbohydrates like ice cream or whatever.
Yeah.
You asked about supplementation as well. I
Right.
am super diligent about supplementation since I did my first training certification back in 2012. I've probably taken foundation vitamins since then.
Okay.
And so for me, foundation vitamins, you're talking about like a multivitamin, magnesium, vitamin D, probably some zinc, a probiotic, and
Yeah.
then like other stuff here and there, some creatine
You
monohydrate,
you pair your
some,
vitamin D with a vitamin K.
yeah. So it's already coupled with that in
Yeah.
there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm super diligent about foundation vitamins because if you look at the research that exists out there, most people are deficient.
Yeah.
And when you alleviate a deficiency, you feel like a normal person again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, so many people are deficient in magnesium.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's responsible for like over like 300 bodily processes.
Hmm.
It's vital.
Yeah, so the research used to say 300 enzymatic processes, but what they've actually shown now in recent research is it may actually be upwards of 1,000 different
Oh,
processes throughout the
wow.
body are dependent on some type of magnesium. And then to take it a step further, most people don't understand that there's multiple different elemental forms of magnesium,
Right.
right? So like what type of chelated form of magnesium are you ingesting is going to determine basically help different processes, right?
Right.
And then you have magnesium threonate, which is the only elemental form of magnesium that actually passes the blood-brain barrier. So like when you talk about like depression of the nervous system or like calming yourself down or going to sleep, that magnesium threonate is amazing. And you know, you can take a glycinate for like general health. Magnesium is the one supplement where I'm like, I geek out over this super
Yeah,
hardcore.
I like to do it topically. I mean,
Sure.
obviously, you have like a bowel tolerance.
Hmm.
You can only take so much.
It depends. It depends on what form you're taking because if you're taking different types of magnesium, they'll actually induce like some bowel movements, right? But if you're deficient and then you take magnesium and then you take a probiotic with that, you can kind of wind up on the toilet.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, fuck, dude. Yeah, you gotta be careful. Yeah. So I definitely like to do it topically. Do you do like a greens mix or anything?
Yeah, so for me, I take an antioxidant blend. We actually have an amazing one here called Nutrients that I use, but I've used in the past. We had wellness greens with the Polican group. I pretty much always take it because it's the one thing that everybody in the world can take, right? It's vegetables,
Dude, yeah,
right?
if there's one thing I feel like people can implement, everybody always wants to know, oh man, what fat burner can I take or
Yeah,
what
no, you
protein
don't.
should I be
Yeah,
taking? It's
don't.
like, yeah, like if you okay, like I food first,
Hmm.
but if you are gonna take something, like go take a greens mix. Like
Yeah,
let's add
sure.
that into so you can get
Yeah.
some micros in. Have you tried the first form, Opti Greens?
Nope.
Dude, I tried it. It's fucking phenomenal. I was
Nice.
really torn between like trying that one and then I've tried the On It one and I was looking at Organifi,
Hmm.
but dude, I tried that OptiGreens by First Form and it has been game changing. It
Nice.
tastes delicious. They have like just like a phenomenal mix of like just different phytonutrients in there
Yep.
and man, it's just one of those things I feel like so many people can benefit
Yeah.
from just by adding into just a regular regimen.
You gotta hit up Andy, get him on your podcast, man.
He's on the list.
Nice.
He's on the list. Just all those dudes. They're fucking killing it, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, putting St. Louis on the map.
Business is going well for them for sure.
Yeah, yeah. That's what you need to link up with next, dude.
We'll see, man. I got some stuff in the background right now that I'm hoping some of it manifests. I can actually start talking about it. I'm probably gonna make an announcement today or sometime in the very near future. I just came to an agreement with teambodybuilding.com,
Oh,
so I'm going to
nice.
be on part of teambodybuilding.com. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So that's going to come out in the very near future, or at least I'll make it public. And then I got some other stuff going on too that we'll see.
Yeah, dude. So, yeah, let's take a moment to, yeah, if what is next for you? If there's anybody you want to plug, like your socials, I want to leave the floor to you to,
Yeah, for
like,
sure.
let's talk about these things.
Yeah. So if you're looking for me, I'm really easy to find. All my social media handles are just my full name, Derik Aspen Scott or Derik A. Scott.
Yeah,
It's spelled kind of uniquely Derik, so that's not hard to figure out.
yeah.
Um,
I'll put things in the show
yeah,
notes too.
cool. I'm now working out here with UP Los Angeles. UP is a global personal training company. It's the only one like it in the whole entire world. And UP and I right now are working on putting together some stuff with regards to all my training, all my nutrition for the Titan Games. So if you go to like my Twitter or you go to my Instagram and you click on my link, that's what it'll take you to right now. I am obviously involved with Rock Tape. I plug them a bunch, but I use them all the time. I love Rock Tape. Now teambodybuilding.com,
Yeah,
they're involved. I have a protein sponsor at the moment called Natural Machine Nutrition. It's just grass-fed whey protein.
nice.
Really good for me. And then I have, man, I wish these guys would. I wish we could get an agreement earlier so I could start talking about some of this stuff, but I have a bunch of stuff in the background that hopefully I'll be able to talk about soon.
Yeah, yeah. Is that hard to have to like wait to announce things?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm an attorney, so I understand it. I understand NDAs and all that stuff, but it's really weird for me to be like, the Titan Games we shot in October, November. I didn't get to talk about it until now. And then now I've never in my life had so many different like confidential like negotiations going on or NDAs or
Yeah,
all this stuff that's like happening, and people are kind of aware because they've seen me with The Rock. They've seen me on NBC now. They've seen me on like these big platforms, and they understand that when you're able to get to those elevated platforms, you can do some things with it. So the kind of people know stuff is going on and everybody's kind of excited, but
yeah.
I'm excited to like hopefully begin to announce some of this stuff.
Yeah, yeah, because I mean, I'm sure you're wheeling and dealing, and
Yeah.
like just different things go through, and I mean, you're living life in real time, right?
Yeah.
But you're almost talking about it all
Yeah.
in, like in the past.
Yeah. Yeah. It's wild. It's very wild. I'm just glad people have seen the Titan Games now. I'm
Yeah,
glad that everyone understood like what I went through, why it was so physically difficult. Because after the lunar event, my mom and I had texted her immediately after. I was like, that was the most physically difficult thing I'd ever done. It was
yeah,
super hard. Like, I tried to explain it to them because they weren't able to come out for it. But then she texted me after the show and she's like, no, she actually called me and left me a voicemail. She's like, oh my God, I didn't understand. I didn't understand until I saw it, like
yeah,
how crazy that was. And what's even crazier is that Cole, in that competition, actually, he tore his thoracic cage, herniated two discs, his gallbladder, liver, and kidneys all shut down because of
Whoa.
that competition, how intense it was. And you're talking about a guy who literally in every aspect looks like Thor. He looks like a
Yeah,
superhero, right? And has been like a professional wakeboarder, American Ninja Warrior, like farm boy, just like super physical specimen.
yeah,
And to hear about the injuries, you understand how intensive that competition was.
yeah, yeah. Because it's so easy to see on TV,
Mm-hmm.
and feel like you can do it, or
Mm-hmm.
or feel like the guys who are going through it aren't feeling anything. You
Yeah.
see it in fighting all the time. Like you'll watch fighting, and then like you'll see somebody get leg kicked, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like to the viewer, it's just like, oh, it's just a kick. But like when you're in there, like
Oh
that
yeah.
landed, like that
Yeah.
hurts. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's easy to be so disassociated from like the actual experience of what that human's actually going through.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, that's some intense stuff, dude. So one last thing, and I was trying to figure out how I wanted to do this, but I wanted to like leave the floor to you in the sense of like you're very inspirational for a lot of people, and I think you have like an amazing mindset. Just anything like you want to like leave the folks with, as far as just like inspirationally, or like just a final word, talking about mindset, or you know what I mean, like how can what can people do to just to be a better themselves.
Yeah, what's cool is that we talk about this all the time. If you can recognize greatness in another person, it just means that you're capable of it, right? The ability to recognize something in another individual means that there's some aspect of yourself, right? So any bit of inspiration, motivation, or anything that anyone sees in me in a positive characteristic or a positive light or a positive piece, that person, because the reason that they can see that is because it's within themselves. So you just have to make the decision to be your own superhero, right? You have to say, okay, I recognize this piece of inspiration, this piece of motivation in that person. How do I apply that in my own life? How does the person who's in my exact scenario, the superhero version of myself, what do they do, right? and
Yeah.
and and I think that's what I would urge people to do, to stop settling and go for whatever it is you see in life that you want to pursue. Go do that thing. If you view me as inspirational, there's a reason. There's something within yourself that is drawing inspiration from an aspect of me, and you're capable of it.
Yeah, yeah, man. People are powerful, and they're definitely capable of making it happen, man. So, hey, brother, I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me and share your story, dude. So, yeah, dude, that's it. That's all I have for
Yeah,
today, dude.
appreciate it, man. This is cool.
Yeah,
It's a cool
dude.
setup.
All right, everybody. Until next time.